Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Monday, October 13th, 2025. I'm your host, George Kirk, joined by the one and only Cody Roadcap. And I was told to sing happy birthday to you, but I don't think the fans want to hear any of that. So just happy birthday.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, buddy. Apologies for the delay. Birthday celebrations is why I was running late. So this little bit later than start is all on me.
It's all good. We got to hear some probably the best elevator music you're going to hear, I guess, is the way I'll describe it.
It was
jamming a
vibe.
little bit here in the back in the green room.
I was like, do I even want to end this? Like, it was good.
Come on, see, I found some good stuff here. Had to keep people entertained while we waited for you to get back, but happy you're here and looking forward to jumping into a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, there's a lot to get to talking about. I mean, it was a good week for football. I mean, not for people in Pennsylvania, but
it's not a good week for anything sports related in Pennsylvania, if we're being honest.
But yeah, good. Packers got a dub. Always good to have that. So, and a lot of news to hit on. So we should probably get to that.
I'll do the bookkeeping really quick. Make sure you follow us at the Couch GMs, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok to get even more you do from the show. You can DM us with any questions you have, or join us live Mondays and Thursdays on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch to ask your questions live. We get to as many as we can during the show. But Cody, what's happening? I got to start off with a fan comment. The only positive for Pennsylvania/Philadelphia fans is the Cowboys losing to Carolina. Amen. We have a silver lining.
If you Philly fans need it, that's for sure.
It's been a rough one, but we're gonna build off of it, I hope. Rough one for Titans fans this year, as well, as the Titans have officially fired head coach Brian Callahan very early. I don't know if I remember. I guess there's been some very early coach firings, but after week six is very early for the first domino to fall in the coaching carousel.
Yeah, I was surprised that it was the Titans head coach. Not that he's done a bad job, but just like they're just underperforming, right? But there's always like that worry about like now Cam Ward is going to have an interim head coach and then a new head coach next year, and he's going to have it essentially his third head coach going into his second year. And it's like, okay, that's a lot for a rookie. How does that stun his development? But if Brian Callahan wasn't working out and he's had some questionable calls, questionable decision making, I never really liked the hire to begin with. And, that's a lot easy to say when he wins 4 games in the season and a half that he was there. But they were in a bad spot, and it felt like they had to take whatever they could get. And unfortunately, I feel like they're going to be in that same situation going into this offseason too. So we'll have to wait and see. And it does not help that the guy that they moved on for is coming to town with the New England Patriots, who already have 4 wins, the same amount of wins that Brian Callahan has in his whole tenure in Tennessee.
Amen to that. And I mean, I think you and I were both shocked also when they decided to move on from Vrabel, even though I know there was some disagreements and there was a drop in how well he was doing. But I think it all stemmed from like once they traded AJ Brown, it all just went downhill. And there was a lot of disagreements between him and ownership/GMs. But their interim head coach is Mike McCoy. If you remember him, he used to be a coach with the LA Chargers. I guess there's a chance if he really turns this thing around, he has a shot to be the coach next year. But I think you're right. We're probably looking at a third head coach for Cam Ward entering year 2.
Yeah, and George knows those years also.
I'm a Chargers fan. I don't know what you're talking about.
Got him.
Moving on. If you fell asleep early last night, you may have missed, but then saw the social media fallout this morning. Brian Branch, safety for the Detroit Lions, was suspended for one game for a brawl that he started by smacking Juju Smith-Schuster following that Chiefs-Lions game last night. He is appealing his one-game suspension, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but just thoughts of how that whole thing went down, Cody.
Yeah, I'll be shocked if the appeal works. This Brian Branch, very talented player, I believe, has already been fined for questionable things 7 times in his career already, and he's still young. I believe this was year 3 for him.
That's
So
not good for his appeal case either.
right, so I would not be surprised if you go back and watch the social media play because he talked about it. He said it was childish. He talked about it being, an illegal block in the back that got frustrated. He's tired of not getting the calls and whatnot. Go back and watch the play. It really isn't that big of a deal. It just they lost and they didn't handle it very well. It's as simple as that.
It is, and I think he was also drinking from the same tea that we like to drink from, the whole like Chiefs don't get called against them tea. Which, I mean, you can question all you want if the Chiefs got a couple calls to go their way at the end of that game. They were definitely vying for a couple, but every single team does these days. I don't think there was anything absolutely outrageous from that game last night, but I'm sure people are going to go out there and keep dissecting it.
Yeah, I mean, from last night, the things that are going to get the most scrutiny would be the called touchdown back from Jared Goff because of the illegal formation, which
But it was.
it was. So they got the call right. Can't
Yep.
complain there. I know some people are going to complain about the Patrick Mahomes roughing the passer. Aiden Hutchinson took his 3 steps and still shoved him. Again, it's frustrating, but that one, he's gotten a lot worse, or a lot less called against him. So that one was definite. But the biggest one, and this is a little bit on Detroit as well, is Travis Kelce had a catch down the field that I'm pretty sure hit the ground. But the Chiefs hurried up and were able to snap it before they were, got a look and wanted to challenge stuff like that. And actually the Lions tried to sub in that play and got an offsides penalty too. So like it was just those are the 3 big, questionable calls, and I think they were all ruled correctly, or, the Lions had a chance to overturn it. They just didn't take the time to challenge it.
Exactly. And I'm not even saying the Lions are a poorly coached team, but like the Chiefs are very good at knowing how to push the boundaries. And there's plenty of things that have been called for or, whatever against the other team for the Chiefs that I've been questioning. This just isn't one of those cases to me. And it's kind of scary to me that I'll just tie this in our next point. They seem like they're starting to catch fire and they're starting to figure it out this year. And they haven't even had Rashee Rice back, who, as of today, his suspension is officially lifted.
Yep, I just got the notification from NFL.com that he is no longer eligible for my IR spot. So I have to go make some moves before we do waivers and figure out who I'm going to cut for that. But everyone around that building, all the news coming out is like people are excited for him to come back and quote unquote be that missing piece that they need on offense. And I think he could be in for a big second half of the season as well in terms of a fantasy output.
And that's why, I mean, we're going to do waivers later, but he's very not widely available. I think he's available in about 10% of NFL.com leagues, 14% of ESPN, and I think it was 12% of Yahoo. Those are the 3 I was able to check quickly before the show. But he should be owned everywhere. So even while you're going through your waivers this week, just double check, make sure he's not available in your league. You never know if you're happening to find that league that Cody literally pulling out his phone right now to check.
I'm checking Sleeper.
Oh, okay. Appreciate that. Because I mean, I'm sure there were some trolls out there on TikTok who are already like, yeah, I'm going to add Rashee Rice right now and just being sarcastic. But there's definitely going to be that person that's going to be like, you know what? Wouldn't have thought of that. So just like to throw those things out there when you think of them.
Yeah, he's available in 9% of leagues on Sleeper. So but that's a couple leagues that he's out there. Because like I know in mine, I've had him the whole time, but I didn't realize the league didn't allow IR people or suspended people in the IR spot. And we only have like 4 or 5 bench spots. I want to say 5, but I've been working with 4 because of Rashee Rice taking up 1. So there's probably people out there that don't have him in those situations.
Yeah, I literally added him after week 1 in an ESPN league because somebody couldn't afford to hold him
Mm.
on a bench spot. So, I mean, I added him obviously beforehand, but there never know the situation where he slipped through the cracks after he got dropped. So,
Alrighty, but of course, on our Monday shows, we got to go through the injury reports, the guys that are banged up, and talk about them. We got a long list again this week. No bigger name though, especially in terms of fantasy. Puka Nacua left the game, ankle sprain. Did seem like he was going to try to give it a go, but he was eventually ruled out. And now, after some testing and results, it sounds like this could be a multi-week injury. They're going to call him questionable for week 7. But any times when you hear he say could miss some time or could miss some weeks, the next week always feels like a stretch for me. So definitely a tough blow out there.
it is. And I was actually confident that he wasn't going to miss time because I saw him. He came back in for a play or two after halftime, then was kind of sitting out for a while. He actually came back in on one of their last offensive drives for a goal line play. They had something, I'm guessing, drawn up for him that I don't know if the play didn't get run or if it got blown up. I'm forgetting exactly how it worked. But like because he came back in the game, I was expecting like, oh, they're going to rest him this week. He's not going to practice. He'll put up a limited Friday and come back. But it doesn't sound like that's the case. I'm trying to look up really quick when their bye week is because I'm curious. They have a bye in week 8. So I definitely wouldn't be shocked if he sits week 7. They give him week 8 for the bye, and then he comes back in week 9 just from knowing how that breaks out.
Yep. And we're doing waivers later, and I have not looked at the list of guys that George has compiled as well. So because of being late to start the show, we didn't talk too much beforehand. But because Devontae Adams there, he's obviously not available in waivers. Like I'm not running out to get a Tutu Atwell or a Whittington.
Jordan Whittington, yep.
Thank you. Uh, for like a spot start if Puka can't go.
No, I think it's a big boost for Devontae Adams owners this week, though. Having him as the number 1 there. But there's going to be a spread out of targets other than that. Maybe a Tyler Higbee comes to mind if you want to try to snag a tight end to get a couple extra targets for a week, but that's probably
Is
all
he
I
even the
got.
tight end still there? Like I don't
Yeah,
even know.
he is.
Okay.
He actually had a decent week this week, too. I debated putting him on the waiver list for that reason, but he's not. So there's your bonus for the day.
Cool.
The Buccaneers continue to be very banged up. They actually had Emeka Egbuka leave the game early with a hamstring strain. He is expected to miss time. Not good timing because they did say in their press conference today that Godwin and Bucky Irving will not be available for week 7. But the hope is that Mike Evans will start practicing this week. So there's a chance they have somebody coming back. If not, just grab everyone named Johnson in that offense. And that seems like what we're doing.
Or
Tez Johnson. They have, Sterling Shepard, but he actually didn't even seem to be the guy that was getting most of the targets unless I looked at the numbers incorrectly. It's Cameron Johnson and Tez Johnson are the other two besides Sterling Shepard.
Yeah, Shep seems to be that veteran presence in the room in general.
Mm-hmm.
But it is worth noting that they play the Lions on Monday Night Football. So even if you're potentially getting Mike Evans back, it's going to be hard you're going to have one of those Bucks wide receivers as like a spot start if you're going to, roll the dice, or maybe he just gets ruled out on Friday, or we'll know more on Thursday's show too. But the Bucks continue to get banged up, but they're still playing extremely good football right now. And Baker Mayfield has continued to make his case for MVP.
He is. The fact that he's playing with almost nothing, like that team's the closest comparison to that team is the 49ers, and they haven't had Brock Purdy the entire year. It's been split between him and Mac Jones because of Purdy's injuries, but they've both been playing on extremely high levels considering so many injuries.
I mean, and it was a pretty decent game. I wasn't watching it too closely because obviously that's when the Packers were on. But it seemed like a solid game for most of it, back and forth between those two teams. But you mentioned the 49ers, and they are another team that is extremely banged up. Already lost Nick Bosa. Now they lose Fred Warner to a pretty nasty dislocated and broken ankle injury. And then Tawan Jennings coming out and saying he's playing with 5 broken ribs, a high and low ankle sprain. Like, can we rest that man? Like,
the problem is they can't because they don't have anyone left. He sat a week and they had no one.
Kendrick Bourne looked great.
You're right. That's all they had, really. But
I don't even understand how someone's playing with 5 broken ribs, high and low ankle sprain. Like,
shout out to too when these things come out after the fact, because it's like you and I would have never told anybody to play Juwan Jennings if we knew he was going out there with 5 broken ribs, a high and low ankle sprain. He's basically just going to be out there to catch a couple passes and be a decoy. And that's kind of what happened. He did not have a good game, but Kendrick Bourne continued to break out. And I think having Juwan Jennings even there helped that.
Yeah, but we'll see. Kendrick Bourne's probably up back on that waiver wire list too after some of that news and where they're at this week. But wide receivers continue to get banged up. We saw Marvin Harrison Jr. left mid-game with a concussion. Kyler Murray didn't play in week 7, although they did a pretty good job hanging with the Colts for most of that game.
Yeah, I want to talk deeper into that game later when we get to reality check, so I'm not going to go too deep here, but obviously big blow if Marvin Harrison can't go next week for fantasy teams, as he was finally somebody who we were like starting to build up confidence in again, and we thought he might have had a good game per set, and he didn't start bad, but obviously not playing the whole game definitely hurt that point output. And there's not really anyone in that offense I directly can be like, go add him to fill in that spot. So we're trying to look elsewhere to fill that. And I don't think I believe in Michael Wilson or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Obviously, Trey McBride is like the big benefactor, or I shouldn't say benefactor, but he's going to be the number one target with the question marks they already have at running back. I think Wilson even got banged up for a little bit too. Like they're going through it a little bit. So yeah, no one from the waiver wires on that one. Just like no one on the waiver wires for the Jets, with Garrett Wilson expected to miss some time after a couple weeks hyperextending his knee over in London. He had a rough game. I mean, the whole Jets offense in general.
The whole game was rough offensively, honestly.
Yeah, but the Jets finishing with a net of -10 passing yards, and just for that's if you subtract the sack yards, that's how you get to the -10 net passing yards. So still a really rough day for the Jets and Justin Fields.
Very rough. And I actually heard something over the weekend too that was like Justin Fields regrets leaving Pittsburgh. And I don't think he actually physically said that, but I wouldn't be shocked either.
Yeah, it's looking like Pittsburgh made out for the quarterback spot.
Yeah, it is definitely looking like it. Keep adding on wide receivers. Calvin Ridley left week 6 with a hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries normally mean at least missing some time, but we haven't heard a whole lot on that one because they've been dealing with other news over there in Tennessee. But we'll keep you updated on that one. I see somebody we probably would have thought about using to fill in for some of these injured receivers, and that might not be an option either.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, unless you're playing club league flag football, you can come back from a hamstring injury in a week and play at 50%. But outside of that, it takes a little bit of time.
Props to you, Cody, for grinding through it.
Thank you. I knew you would get the reference. No one else cares.
Craziest news of the week. The Colts had 2 guys injured in their pregame this week as Anthony Richardson suffered an orbital fracture from a resistance band, and Charvarius Ward suffered a concussion in a nasty-looking collision in pregame. That's not something I've heard of before, not 1 but 2.
Yeah, occasionally you hear about a guy like tweaking something pregame or something like that. Like it's not unheard of, or like for Charvarius Ward, a collision. That one we've heard, someone rolls their ankle. I'm still trying to figure out what happened with this resistance band.
Right? I had a hard time even finding what did it, and it called it some kind of weird rubber band. I'm like, it's a resistance band. Like that's just anyone that has gone to a gym has seen them. They definitely can seem dangerous, but he was doing something to literally fracture the bone around his eye. It's crazy.
Yeah, like was he like trying to like stretch something out and like had it under his foot and then it like shot up and hit him? Like that's kind of like my guess. Again, full speculation, no insider knowledge whatsoever. But yeah, tough break. But the Colts continue to go to 5-1, and hopefully Anthony Richardson can heal up soon.
Hopefully so. I mean, Daniel Jones continues to roll there, so at least that's good. And hopefully they wouldn't need Anthony Richardson. I'll knock on wood for any Colts fans out there listening while he recovers. And then just quick Ravens note, they're going on the bye, but Lamar Jackson and Roquan Smith are both expected to return after that bye week in week 8. So good news for fantasy owners of Ravens pieces and Lamar.
They need them.
Amen. I don't know if they're even going to still be in the race at that point, but you and I can probably talk about that going into week 8.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not looking good for them, but it's still early enough. They could still go on a little bit of run. Like, it's only 5 losses for them. I say only because you basically have to, not drop more than 2 the rest of the way to like feel pretty good about your playoff shots. But if you get Lamar back, you get Roquan, your 2 leaders on offense and defense, like you think you could start to turn this around.
Definitely. Like, we've seen them go on tears where they win 5 to 10 in a row and they would need it. The problem is when you're doing that, when you have 1-2 losses, it feels a lot different than when you're almost telling yourself this is a playoff game, I have to win every single week. And if this keeps going bad enough, we might even be talking about like coaching changes for them in the offseason. I know Harbaugh's been on the hot seat to an extent, but he's been successful enough that it's never really been a serious conversation. It's more been like, why can't they get over the edge? Is it Harbaugh's fault?
Yeah, and we'll have to see how much injuries plays a factor into that. But if they were to miss the playoffs, I would anticipate a head coaching change for sure.
One of those things where it's when they're there for so long, it stales and you kind of just need to change the scenery. And it's not that he's a bad coach. Like you look at the example with Philly and Andy Reid, he moves on to Kansas City and turns the franchise around. So,
all righty. I guess the only other news to talk about is the Darius Smith, Philadelphia Eagle defensive lineman, retired today.
Yeah, a team that really needs pass rush has a guy they sign off the street 3 weeks ago, I want to say it was, and then he retires out of nowhere. Good times.
So I saw that and I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. I don't really have anything else to say about that. It was just so out of nowhere and random and just added on to the list of.
And it wasn't like he wasn't playing.
Sports going great.
Like he was still playing. Like I know he just signed, but he was still getting snaps. It wasn't like he signed and then was a healthy scratch for 3 weeks. It's like, well, if I'm not going to play, I'm going to hang up. Nope.
No, he was playing well too.
Yeah.
Like I don't quite understand where it came from.
I like Zadarius Smith. I think he's a good player. His 2 years or he was there for 3, but he was hurt his whole last year. In Green Bay, he was definitely a difference maker, but there was a lot of rumblings about some, like just he's a different animal. He has a little bit of that like Rodgers in him too. Like he kind of like beats to his own drum a little bit, and I think you see that with the retirement announcement. So
very true. All right, Cody, that gets us through the long list of injuries, and I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of updates on things going into Thursday's show. But in the meantime, do you want to do a reality check?
Let's do it.
All right, I'd be remiss if I had spent this whole show and didn't talk about it. So, first off, did you get Rico Dowdled this week?
I have been so busy. I have barely looked at my fantasy team. So I know the ones that I still have a chance to win, but I didn't look to see like what happened.
I got you. It's still early. You were preparing for the show and having a birthday celebration, so I got you.
Yeah, so like I know in the World Cup, in a game that I should definitely win, or I need to win to keep at that potential bye. If I don't get a championship this year, to keep on Bree's heels. We are currently tied, and I have Deebo Samuel, who is active, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And he has Kyle Pitts, which it's his season. So it's like a 1-for-1, who does better. And Deebo has let me down many times in the past before. So I am definitely a little scared.
Deebo's been a top 10 receiver in fantasy so far this year, though. But Kyle Pitts' year, I really want to put the money on Kyle Pitts in that one just because it'd be funny.
That's where I'm at. But I did not get Dowdled. And although I will say we did have him as a start of the week this week, and we said he's not going to have 200 yards rushing. And technically we were right. He did have over 200 total yards, though. But he definitely was jacked up, excited, ready to play versus the Dallas Cowboys. But to your question for this segment, should Chuba Hubbard owners be worried? And I don't think they should be worried outside of, I think Dowdle has showed enough that like they don't have to rush him back to full workload right away. Like if they want to give him an extra week, okay. If they want to, get him back for 2 weeks and do more of a 50-50 split before they get it back to Chuba, so be it. if a couple weeks from now Dowdle gets hot in a game and they just decide to ride with him, I think that's in the realm of possibility. But once Chuba's back and healthy, I expect it to be his job again.
I agree. There already was a split occurring back when before he got hurt. And I think they're probably going to go back to that. I think at that point it was more like 70-30. I might see it leak more towards 60-40, but Chuba Hubbard's been so good that I think he's going to be totally fine with that workload. I think them two in that workload is hopefully upside going to be the Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery, and the fact that they could both be startable, but not to like that extent where they're both going to be as dominant as they are. But I think the more likely scenario is Chuba is going to be a solid RB2, and he's going to not quite have the ceiling he had before the injury, but he's going to be good. And then Rico Dowdle will be a emergency flex option / somebody you definitely have to hold on to in case anything does happen to Chuba.
Alrighty, next reality check question. Are the Bucks the most complete team in the league?
So I wanted to ask this question just because I've been in awe over how the 49ers have handled injuries and still been able to come out there and be competitive every single week. And then we saw the Bucks, who in a very similar situation with just about as many injuries, go out there and beat that 49ers team. And they have been in every single game. They should have probably won every single game so far this year. So at this point, they can do everything well. I kind of feel like they might be the most complete team in the league. If not, they're at least a top 3 to 4 team right now that we weren't expecting to see.
I think I view the Bucks a little bit differently than you do. So I think for the most part, what you said is correct. However, they've done a lot with injuries, especially at the wide receiver position. They're not as banged up like on, across the board as a team like the 49ers, but at the wide receiver, sure. Like they still have their quarterback. Baker was playing at a high level last year. With that said, and you mentioned that they've been in every game. They've had to come back in the last 2 minutes in 3 or 4 of their games. They were
all of this week. Actually,
probably all of it this week.
Yeah.
They were a block kick away from winning against the Eagles. They had a blocked kick that was returned for a touchdown that probably should have cost them the game against the New York Jets.
Mm-hmm.
So they just some of the teams that they've, because they have the record, but I am a little bit concerned about this team long term. I think in their division they'll be fine just because of the division they play in. But how many times can they do this back and forth fourth quarter comeback thing? It feels very similar to, I think we talked about on last week's show, the Minnesota Vikings, the year they lost the Giants in the first round because they had won, 8 or 9 one-score games, and then they play the Giants and they finally fell to the opposite side. I'm not saying that they, maybe the Bucks come back to earth in the middle of the season and then go on for a run. They have the skill talent players to do it, but I think Baker is playing out of his mind, and that's why he's the favorite for the MVP. But I also think that's part of the reason why I'm not as super sold on this Bucks team being the elite of the elite.
Maybe it's me optimistically thinking because in my mind, I'm going, how good can they be when they're healthy if they're not even healthy right now? And I think them and the 49ers are the two teams that are playing at a very high level and then still have the most space to grow too. So maybe I'm just thinking optimistically on the high end of they're still finding ways to win and they should get better. Not like the situation where it was like the Vikings were finding ways to win and they were almost overperforming and they had no one that was like, oh, this is going to be a difference maker that's coming back. They didn't have a Mike Evans coming back off of the injured list or Chris Godwin or whoever. They were playing at full strength and still just scrapping away wins.
Yeah, I guess they're finding a way to win. Winning is hard in the NFL. That's the most important thing. But I also look at them going down to the wire with the Jets, going down to the wire with the Falcons. The Eagles I get, but there was a lot of teams early on, and I think they've gotten better each week, which is always a positive sign. that I'm not ready to say that they're the most complete team. But I'll also say, like, through 6 weeks of the season, I feel like there's a lot of teams that are elite or look like they have a chance to make a run, but it's like the most wide open it's ever been. They've also all had their down moments, whether it's the Bills losing at home to the Patriots on Sunday Night Football, the Packers dropping to the Browns, uh, the Chiefs losing to the Chargers in Brazil, the Ravens, the way they've fallen down. Obviously, injuries play a big part into that one too. The Eagles struggling on offense. Like there's just like there hasn't seemed to be a team yet like really pull away. Even the Lions, they haven't beat a winning team yet, a team with a above 500 record. So I guess a 500 record because that's where the Bears are at. But there's a lot of question marks with every team so far, and luckily there's still 11 weeks left in the season.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to revisit this in 8 weeks and be like, this looks completely different than it did back in week 6 to 7. But it is interesting how wide open both conferences look right now, which is not what we expected coming into the season. I want to move to Dallas, and CeeDee Lamb is hopeful to return in week 7. No confirmations there. He's getting his reevaluation. They hope to start ramping up in practice. We'll obviously have more for you on that one on Thursday. But will CeeDee Lamb's return put the Cowboys in playoff contention?
No. I think the Cowboys might already be in playoff contention. So I'm going to use that word very loosely.
Okay.
But the reason I say no for this, question is I think the Cowboys can beat anybody, but their defense is not very good, right? Like,
yeah.
You should not be giving up 30 points to the Carolina Panthers and end up losing the game in the fourth quarter and want me to think that you're a legit playoff contender. You can't let the Bears dog walk you in Chicago on defense. Like, if you look just at Dak's numbers, I think Dak has a very strong case for like playing at MVP level. Like, I think Dak is playing as a top 3 quarterback right now. Like him and Baker, Josh Allen are probably the 3 best statistically quarterbacks in the NFL. That defense in Chicago or in Dallas is like almost as bad as last year's Cincinnati, despite having Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, despite having Dak Prescott, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, Javonte Williams. I'm like, I don't even know if this team can make the playoffs because they just have to score so many points.
It almost doesn't feel much different than the Cowboys teams that we're used to either, though. The difference is the offense would get off to such big leads early that the defense was able to give up a lot of points, but they were very opportunistic in teams being desperate, getting put in passing situations. They got a lot of turnovers. The turnovers aren't coming, and the big leads aren't coming right now. And because of the defense not being able to pin their ears back and pass rush and jump routes on the back end, the inconsistencies in that defense are being shown more than they had maybe 2-3 years ago when they were performing on a similar level, but we're just kind of walking teams in the first 2 quarters, and then the last 2 quarters was just embarrassing.
Yeah, so I think they're similar to like I said with the Bucks. Like, it feels very wide open this year. It feels like there'll be a lot of teams competing. So I think Dallas will be among those teams, but I don't think CeeDee Lamb coming back fixes their biggest problem, which is their defense.
Gotcha. The emergence of George Pickens has been very positive for them, though, and I'm
You've
sure
been
you
along.
have plenty to talk about when it comes to how Pickens is affected when Lamb comes back.
Well, that and just I try to tell people all offseason, like, George Pickens is a good wide receiver. He's going to fit in Dallas really well, and it's paying off. It's one of
You're
the few
right.
things
I'm wrong. I got you.
It's okay. I've been wrong a lot lately, so.
Hey, you hit a couple of good ones last week, Mister. I go out there for the clip. I'm just kidding. You don't actually do that, but you like being bold, which I appreciate.
Sometimes it pays off.
Speaking of bold, I wanted to be bold with this question. So the Cardinals lost a game. They also lost Marvin Harris in the middle of that game, but their offense did not look bad, especially considering everything they have going on. With Jacoby Brissett, is the Cardinals offense better without Kyler Murray?
No. Nope. Sorry. My voice just went out on that one because I don't know what happened, but no, they're not better without Kyler Murray. I think it looks different because Brissett plays more within a system where Kyler Murray has a little bit of like street baller in him, where he extends, makes plays and stuff like that. And but I don't think I would say that their offense is better with Kyler Murray because he is such a playmaker, or without Kyler Murray, excuse me.
The only thing I think that benefits what Brissett plays versus what Kyler plays is I think Kyler's benefited by a good running game, being able to work off of that in the option game or extend plays, and they have been so banged up at the running back position, missing now Connor and then Trey Benson, and they're down to technically who was their running back 5 now starting because they moved Bam Knight up the depth chart. That I think the passing game can look better if they have somebody in there like Brissett who can get the ball out quick and try to just make quick reads. And that's not necessarily Kyler's game. But I think in the long term, they are still better with Kyler than they are without him.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right. Going to Cincinnati. Obviously, they made the big trade for Joe Flacco. And they offense showed promise in that game against Green Bay. Again, they lost as well, but this is the best their offense has looked since that first week when they had lost Joe Burrow, and then they still put up decent amount of points with Jake Browning in there in relief. Can Flacco win enough games to keep the Bengals alive?
This next month or 4-game stretch for Cincinnati is going to be a big test. So they're going to play Pittsburgh twice, Chicago, and the Jets. And they're currently sitting at 2-3. And you have to think in those 4 games, they have to at least get to 6-6. Sorry, that's not good math.
I was like, wait a second.
No, they have to get to at least. So they're 2-3 now. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They have to win at least 3 of them. So they have to get to at least 5-4.
Okay.
That's what I just say. Be like, okay, this Joe Burrow coming back might make some sense if we can get him come back. They have to win at least 3 of their next 4 games. Again, that's Pittsburgh twice, the Jets, and the Bears. And I will say the one thing that Joe Flacco did do really well is get the ball out quickly. And that was the one thing I thought that they were going to try to do with him, was because their offensive line is not very good, is get the ball out quick and just get it into the playmaker's hands. They targeted both Higgins and Chase. Chase made some incredible plays on Sunday, some great catches. And I think that's just going to be the game plan. Like, just throw them the ball, a lot of 8-yard outs, a lot of quick slants. Like, it's going to be chunk plays. Like, they had a 10-minute drive because it was just like a methodical, like, quick game the whole way down. And can you do that every drive? Absolutely not. Like, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to get a holding penalty. Something is going to happen. But against these lower tier teams, I think they have potential to stay afloat for the stretch, to potentially squeak into the playoffs if Joe Burrow can return in early December. Because once they get to December, that schedule gets kind of brutal.
Yeah, and I think they're going to need Burrow to get through the back half of it. But it's going to be very tight on. They're going to have there's no excuse for losing a game they need to win. So you said they play Chicago. That's a must win because that's a team that's on the rise, but it's not one of those powerhouse teams. The Jets, you can't lose that game either.
And obviously, the 3 of the 4 games are all at home too. So, like,
that's
in
helpful.
Cincinnati. So they get Chicago in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh one of the times in Cincinnati. Obviously, the other time is in Pittsburgh, and then the Jets in Cincinnati. So they actually have 5 or 4 home games in their next 5 games. So that would be a tough stretch they need to play well if they want a shot.
They definitely need to win most of those 4 out of 5, I would say, even if you lose one of the home games, win the away game. But they have to split with Pittsburgh too. I think that's just the other thing. They need to steal a game somewhere, and in the division's the best place to do it. Even though I don't think there's any way they win the division at this point, Pittsburgh's kind of walking away. But Baltimore and Cleveland aren't factors, so they're in position to set themselves up at the number 2 in the division as long as they don't lose these games they need to. So I think Flacco can win enough games to keep the Bengals alive, but it's it's going to be very tight.
Yeah, Pittsburgh already has a 3-game lead. Now, granted, there's still a lot of time left. They got to play a lot of divisional games, but they have a nice hold on it for sure.
They could be benefited on. I think the Steelers and Browns played once already, and the Steelers won. So that was this week, I think, even. But they would be benefited, for example, if the Ravens start getting hot and knock the Steelers down twice, for example, and that kind of thing. But we'll see.
I agree.
Speaking of teams with not a lot of wins right now, I wanted to highlight the New Orleans Saints because they held in there with the Patriots, and Drake May has been fantastic, and the Patriots are one of the surprises of the league so far. They obviously won their first game last week against the Giants, who then came in and steamrolled Eagles and made that win look even more impressive. How many wins do you think the Saints can get to this year, seeing how they are playing better lately than we expected them to?
I'm going to say their ceiling is 5 wins. That's where I'm going to put their ceiling. Just here, I'll read you their remaining opponents. They have the Bears, the Bucks, the Rams, Panthers, Falcons, Dolphins, Bucks again, Panthers again, Jets, Titans, Falcons again. So there's a couple teams in there, your Titans, your Jets, maybe one of the Panthers games.
Dolphins haven't been good.
Dolphins, Falcons, like realistically, like the Rams and the Buccaneers seem like games that they have no business being in at this point. And then everyone else is kind of like, if you told me they found a way to win, okay, I might be able to believe it. Not saying they're going to be favored in many of them, but they're a little scrappy right now, unless I reserve the right to change my opinion if like Cam Jordan gets traded at the deadline. Kamara, I know he said he wants to stay, but if he gets moved at the deadline, Olave has been a name moved around. I know Pittsburgh wants a wide receiver too. I think that'd be a good fit with DK if they can make that happen. But those are just some of the things I would consider for the Saints.
Bonus question for you. I didn't put on the rundown. You talked about how targeted Olave is. Let's just say he stays in New Orleans, at least until this question comes about. How long until he finally scores a touchdown?
Well, why don't you just tell us when he's going to do it? Because you were like, Tet McMillan's, he has number. He's going to get in the end zone, gets in the end zone twice. So whenever
That's
George
true.
says Olave's going to score that week, that's when I believe it.
All right, hear me out. Everyone buy Olave, and he's going to score next week.
Okay. George is calling for the Olave touchdown. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. And it's funny enough, my bonus question to you, and I mean, if you don't really have anybody, that's fine, because I threw this on the spot. Who are some of your favorite buy low, sell high candidates? And I don't hate a buy low on Chris Olave, considering the numbers aren't matching the target volume, and there's upside there to be had.
Yeah, I don't know. I did not prepare for this question, so I'm just trying to run through some names on across the board. Buy low. There isn't a ton of names that I would think about. I'm just trying to think of, potentially guys coming back from injury. Aaron Jones pops into my head. Like Jordan Mason still hasn't done a ton with that opportunity. Like, could you like buy low on an Aaron Jones coming back from an injury? I don't know that like puts your team over the top, so to speak. Could you like buy low on a Brock Bowers as he's coming back from injury? If you want to go for like the tight end, maybe even like a George Kittle, like hasn't played since week 1, might be back in week 7. Just some of those names. Sell high candidates. Depending on how Woody Marks does tonight, like could he be? It depends how much you believe in him. Like if you could get like a more reliable name, maybe even like a sell or a buy low on like an AJ Brown if you think he might end up getting moved at the deadline.
Don't see that happening, but I got you.
No, that's what I'm saying. But like I know there's like some buzz, like he wants to go back to play with Vrabel, and then that would put into question like, would you sell high onto Stephon Diggs? At that point,
I think you might want to sell high on Stephon Diggs anyway, but
yeah,
that's not saying Stephon Diggs is going to do bad the rest of the year, or they're going to trade for a receiver. I think it's just maybe you missed it by a week because he didn't do well this week, but he was kind of overperforming for a bit there.
but yeah, It was a
name few
Keyshawn Booty week.
names. It is Keyshawn Booty week, yeah, right. Couple names that I had in my mind. You might be able to buy low on a Saquon Barkley. People have been worried about his workload to start with, and he finally had a dud. If people are very low on the Eagles offense, maybe you get him for cheaper than you should. Not saying you're going to have to not pay anything for him, because that's definitely not the case. Quinshawn Judkins had his worst game since his first game that he played, and he might be somebody you might be able to get a lot cheaper depending on how much the person actually likes him. And then I was looking at some sell highs. Cam Scattaboo just scored 3 touchdowns. You're not going to get any more value for him than you are now, and they have Tyrone Tracy, who they didn't really work in yet. I'm assuming that split's going to get a little bit more even. So good time to sell high on Scattaboo. And then question for you, because they had Quentin Johnston inactive. Would you sell high on Ladd McConkey after 2 straight good weeks?
I guess that depends on like what you're getting back on. Like I still don't know if like a sell high. Like I just think we're getting back to Ladd McConkey being the guy that we had hoped he would be. So if you could
So you're
sell
not saying
him,
sell because you think this is just going to be the baseline.
yeah, I mean, obviously he's going to have a bad game right here. Or Quentin Johnston's going to have it. Like that's just fantasy football.
Yeah.
But like if like he was the guy that could put you over the edge for obviously like a Ladd McConkey for and a player for like a Jackson Smith and Jigba, right? Like look, or something like that. Like I need some depth pieces. Let me obviously Jackson Smith and Jigba is like one of the top wide receivers in football right now. So if you can make that high, maybe. I just think he's just a value right now because like there's not a lot of people that you'd rather have than him. But if you could get some value for him, I could see that as well. But I'm going to throw this back onto you because you have been a anti this guy for a long time. But there might not be a person better to sell high on with CeeDee Lamb coming back than George Pickens.
Yeah, I agree with that one because again, I'm convinced now that George Pickens is still going to be good for the rest of the year, but he's not going to be this good because there's not going to be close to as many targets to go around when CeeDee Lamb's back, because the Cowboys would be dumb to not pepper targets to CeeDee Lamb. So I have not looked at what his numbers are, but if he's currently at 10 to 12 targets a week and he drops down to 6 to 8, he's still going to do a lot with that, but you're going to get a lot more value selling him now before CD comes back, especially after that game this past week where he went off and then did his whole sideways hurdle thing and was viral. And it's amazing how much those things do rise up fantasy value, especially for people that aren't looking deeper to see like what's going on around them.
Yeah, if you see the clips on TikTok because you're not watching the games, it might make you, if you're hearing about them, that's a good way to put it.
It's true. So glad we could throw a little trade talk into here, Cody. And then do you want to move on to the waiver wire?
Let's do it.
All right. I threw together some names on here on the waiver wire. Cody has not looked at a lot of them, so I'm sure he's going to have some debate with me. Normally don't throw quarterbacks on here, but I wanted to throw one on here as Sam Darnold, who has been on a little bit of a tear lately. He did drop 20 this week, 2 straight weeks of 20 plus, and he actually worked himself into the top 10 in quarterbacks in fantasy now.
Yeah, Sam Darnold was a guy I was debating on picking up in a couple of different leagues. I did not get him. But might even be our league of record. I'm bad at remembering who's on which team. But I've been riding with Bo Nix, and that has been a roller coaster of a ride. And wasn't a terrible week, but like I don't know how much of an upgrade like Sam Darnold is for a Bo Nix because like they both feel like high variant, but Sam Darnold's look good, a lot more consistent at least. So he might be a name I'm looking at for sure.
Yeah, so next week matchup Houston, not a bad one. Houston's defense hasn't really been fantastic. They play the late Monday night game, so another Monday night doubleheader coming up for you, Cody. I know you're looking forward to it.
Houston gets another Monday night game?
Yeah, I have Monday at 10 on his schedule, so there's one of those split doubleheaders.
After playing on Monday night, back-to-back Monday night games. Okay.
Yeah, interesting, right? But anyway, with Sam Darnold, when you're talking about the consistency, his lowest point total since week one, I'm taking out week one because he scored only 5 points, 15.8. That seems to be his floor. He had a couple of 16s, a 27, and a 20. So solid numbers and a solid floor for a quarterback.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving to the running backs, we did not want to touch any of the Chargers backs, and the Chargers said, fine, we'll feature one of them anyway, and it was Kayami Vidal. I don't know if I said his first name right or not, but Vidal is definitely the guy to own. He's definitely somebody who you can start in the meantime after all that workload he got, and he looks solid.
Yeah, it wasn't that, don't start any of it. It was just we didn't know how it was going to shake out. And after 1 week, Vidal looked to be the guy. If it goes back the other way, I'm sorry, but I agree with you. I think Vidal should definitely be owned. I think he had a pretty solid day, especially in fantasy as well.
He did for sure. And then moving to that horrible Cardinals backfield, the right before kickoff, we had somebody at our flag football game saying, well, if you need someone, Bam Knight's the starter today. And he got in the end zone to salvage a day. Wasn't fantastic. Not someone I'm really vying for, but in a weak running back waiver wire week, year, it seems like at this point, Bam Knight's one of the top guys available.
Yeah, I don't know how much I trust that, but again, a perfect example of 1 week, one guy looks like he is going to lead the backfield. The next week, it's somebody different. So I might need to see a little bit more consistency before I go out and spend a bunch of fab dollars or prioritize a Bam Knight. But he at least got the touchdown. He looked like he was the lead back, so at least should be owned.
Dawson Knox just got a touchdown for the Bills in the game that's underway after I had to drop a guy to add him because Kincaid, thank you, wasn't active. So that's good for me. Sorry. Just wanted to just throw that in there.
No, anytime you can give score updates is great. That's the only benefit of the early Monday night game is that starts while we're live.
And we'll get to talking a little bit of Monday night before we get out of here, but we got wide receivers to talk about. I got number one on the waiver wire, Kendrick Bourne, because he has looked fantastic in relief for those San Fran wide receivers that are banged up. Obviously, a little sketchy if we start having guys come back, like Ricky Pearsall, for example. Jennings, not as worried about him because, number one, they like to have two guys in that offense that seem to be going at the same time. And two, if Jennings is really as banged up as he made it sound, he's not going to be up to 100% for at least another few weeks. So Kendrick Bourne's the guy for now.
Yeah, I would like that. Obviously, Pearsall might get him back. They're hopefully going to get George Kittle back soon as well, so it might limit the opportunities. But if you need a spot start in the next week, Bourne seems pretty safe for what's available on the waiver wire.
I am pushing the numbers a little bit, but he's in the 50s in percentage owned on NFL.com. I threw Matthew Golden on here because that's another solid week for him. 3 in a row where he was right around that 10-point threshold, and he should be more owned than he is, and he's even potential flex play if he keeps getting traction like he is in Green Bay.
Yeah, I just think the biggest concern with him is I don't expect Christian Watson to play this week. I think they're going to use the full 21-day window for him to, as he works his way back from the ACL injury and starts to ramp up to speed. But even after the game, a beat reporter talked to Matt LaFleur and was like, hey, he didn't actually say, hey, but you get the point, was hey. Matt Golden has looked really good the last couple of weeks. Is there, any pressure or thought behind starting to feature him as a number one wide receiver? Matt LaFleur said, we don't really view number one, that's more for fantasy football. We trust all our guys. We like to spread it around. We think it, gives us, more flexibility and whatnot. So he's looked really good. It seems like he is building trust with Jordan Love, but because of how the Packers run their whole offense in general, it's tough to have confidence playing any of their receivers on any given weeks. Not to know what the severity of the injury is, though, but Dontavian Wicks, not a guy that you rely on for fantasy, but did drop out with an injury. If he doesn't play, that just gives Matthew Golden more opportunities, though. So there is something to monitor, not as a guy that might take a spot, but because they like to spread the ball around so much. If one less guy can go, that just means more opportunities for the other ones. That would include Romeo Doubs, too.
Yeah, I think at this point, if it's going to be down they're down Jaden Reed still. You're saying they might be down Dontavian Wicks, and then Christian Watson might not be back yet. The only two that I can think of that are like significant left are Dobbs and Golden, which this might be the most comfortable we're playing Packers wide receivers the entire season then.
Yeah, for sure.
Going up to New England, we talked a little bit about the Stephon Diggs thing, and it was a Kayshon Boutte week, and he is somebody I think you could target on the wire just to kind of keep an eye out if the volume keeps going up. He's been getting decent volume, but not really enough for me to be comfortable starting him. But again, in a week where I don't think there was a whole lot out there to push, he's just somebody that I wanted to put on the radar.
Yeah, I think and the same with Cameron Johnson. He's the Bucs wide receiver. Obviously, once these guys start to get healthier and get back, he's not like a long-term play. But with the injuries, if you needed a spot start, I would get, a Cameron Johnson might be like a better next week version than Kayshon Boutte, where Boutte might be a little bit more of a long-term play unless obviously someone gets traded to New England.
That's the way I would look at it too. If you're trying to get a long-term hold, go with Boutte. If you need a short-term player or somebody to play as an emergency handcuff for Mike Evans, Cameron Johnson's the guy. And I personally lean Cameron Johnson instead of Tej Johnson. I know there's two Johnsons out there on the same team, so make sure you're looking at your waiver wire closely when you're making a move. I don't think there might not be a wrong choice between the two, but Cameron Johnson got more volume, so I'm going with him if I had to pick between the two.
Yep, I would agree.
And then, as I said out there earlier, check your wire, make sure Rashee Rice is not available. We already mentioned it, so I'm not going to stick too much. And then we had a little bit of a resurgence of Harold Fannin out there. So if you're tight end desperate, he's somebody you could throw up on the dartboard, especially if we keep seeing a struggling David Njoku, which has been a little bit shocking. But I just feel like they're not going to be afraid to go away from him and more towards Fannin if he keeps struggling after how they've seen this breaking down.
Yeah. Just the Browns offense scares me. Like Harold Fanning's getting the targets and stuff like that. And tight ends are already like touchdown dependent. And so I guess it's better to have a guy that's going to at least get 5 targets than, hoping for a touchdown. But the Browns offense does scare me. But I'm playing Fannin in some leagues too. So if he's out there, it's not a bad option.
We don't know what we're doing at tight end half the time. Like I just said, I started Dawson Knox today because of the injury for Kincaid. I mean, a lot of us played Zach Ertz last week who threw up a donut. Like, we're just trying to find volume that's hopefully semi-consistent. At least Fannin's has been semi-consistent.
Yep.
All right. Get into Monday night really quick.
Yeah, let's do it. Remember, no bumper.
Yes, I got you. I'm just going to quick look up the score to make sure it is only 7-0 in that game right now. And it is 7-7. So I'll try to find the other touchdown while we start talking about Bills.
It was Algier.
There you go. Thank you.
He had the first touchdown. So the Bills answered that Knox touchdown. So it was 7-7.
So maybe we're going to see a high-flying offensive game in the Dome tonight, which wouldn't be a bad thing for people falling behind. And honestly, I feel like it was a low-scoring fantasy week. Or maybe that was just me who was sitting out there with so many injuries. I had 2 wheat leagues where I scored like 70.
Yeah, I have a couple. I have some leagues where it's like incredibly high scoring. Like I think the league that I'm actually going up against my wife, it's going to be like a 150 to 130 game. And then like I have another game that it's going to be like 86-80. So definitely one of those weird weeks in the NFL.
It is. It was a big difference between there was a solid group of top end guys and a lot of them we hit on. And then like everyone else was below 10 at like 9, 8, 7 points. It was very strange week. But yeah, another example, like I'm potentially set up to win a game in the Couch GMs World Cup, projected 97-88. It was everyone's hurt.
Yeah, it's definitely this is like where you make your bread money working those waiver wires and making some trades and just starting the right lineups and weathering the storm. And we haven't even got to Bimageddon yet, so
we have not. But I mean, hopefully some guys start getting healthy. We have a couple of guys. We have Rashee Rice coming back off of the suspended list. Like, set yourself up for future success if you can. Like, if you're not somebody who's down at the 0-1, maybe 2 win mark at this point and can kind of go out there and buy good future assets, this seems like the year to do that.
All right, so you got the score update. You want to talk about the Chicago Commanders game real quick? We already mentioned that Deebo Samuel is active for this one.
Still no Terry McLaurin, as if anyone happened to miss that one. I think the Bears are fully healthy, and we're going to see if what they were doing pre-bye with Roma Dunze and company was legit or not. It's a good measuring stick game for them.
Yeah, and it is worth noting the one big injury or inactive, so to speak, for the Chicago Bears is Cairo Santos, their kicker. Not incredibly fantasy because we advocate to not play with kickers in fantasy. But Jake Moody, former 49ers kicker, is actually the guy that is going to start in his spot now that he is inactive. So could cause some kicking problems or could lead to more fourth down calls going for it because they don't have their, trusted veteran kicker. And Ben Johnson comes from the Dan Campbell background of just go for it all the time on fourth down. So maybe a couple more opportunities for the Bears offense as well.
I like it, Cody. I like it. Can I give you a little bit of a fantasy situation before we get off of here?
Yeah, please do.
All right. So I'm up 19, and it's Caleb Williams for my opponent versus Kyle Pitts. What are my chances?
You are good as long as Caleb does not run a touchdown. I think if Caleb runs in the touchdown, he starts getting to that. I think you're good either way, but I think that's when you start to have to worry. Like if he runs one early, right? Like like first or second quarter, he gets a rushing touchdown and he starts flirting with that 20 to 25 range. And you're like, I just need 5 points from Kyle Pitts. Like, I feel like he's going to get that. So I think you're pretty safe, but that's when I would get, maybe start to get a little butterflies.
Yeah, just a little bit nervous, but I mean, it's Kyle Pitts' year, so how nervous can I be, right?
Exactly. And I think I already told you my big one in the Couch GMs World Cup. That is Deebo versus Kyle Pitts. So we need Deebo to outscore Kyle Pitts.
I feel like there's a chance that both of ours come true, and I hope so for our World Cup standings, but we'll see what happens. And happy birthday again, Cody. Thank you for joining me on this day, and hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, of course. I wouldn't want to spend my birthday anywhere else but then on the Couch GMs podcast with my co-host George. Hey, hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button. Make sure you're tuning in on Mondays and Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern as we are talking all things fantasy football, the NFL, and you can find extra content on our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok, at the Couch GMs. We'll be back on Thursday. I'm Cody Roadcap. That's George Kurtz, and we'll see you then.